Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Humans of Crypto podcast. I was joined today by the wonderful Bridget Greenwood, founder of The Bigger Pie, a community I personally enjoy. She's been supporting the women working in the crypto space, but also on a mission to bring in more diversity, more women to build the world of tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's jump in. Okay, we are here with the one and only Bridget Greenwood, founder of The Bigger Pie. Thank you so much for joining and being part of the Humans of Crypto podcast.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Where are you tuning in from today? What's behind you? Where are you?
I am tuning in from North Norfolk, where I have been for the last 22 years, but in less than 22 days, I'll be in London permanently. So very excited about the move.
Okay, so today we might learn a bit more about the UK blockchain ecosystem, maybe?
We'll find out.
So tell us, who are you? What do you do? What do you do in crypto?
So I came into the space in 2017 because I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Couldn't figure out how to buy it. Obstacles, they don't have to be that big for certain things, and I failed to get past them, and buying Bitcoin was one of them.
Yeah.
And then a friend said to me, hey, send me some money, download this wallet, I'll send you some BTC. And I went, oh, wow, that was really easy. Thanks very much. And then he said, by the way, do you want to join my startup? And I had been running a company on my own, which was working in social media. So BC, before child, I was an independent financial advisor. I wasn't able to continue that once I had him. We might get into that story as part of this chat. But then I did study how to use the computer, and I'm not particularly technical, but I am quite good at relationships. So back in the day, over 10 years ago, when social media was organic, we found a way to be able to attract people to you, interested in what you had to say, putting out great content. And so I set up a company helping financial firms to do that. Very quickly, we've seen that move to what we have today, which I think is a destructive form of consumerism, of the way that algorithms are designed to take our attention, goes to the biggest bidder. The damage I think that it's doing, I just didn't want to be involved in that space anymore. So when I was offered the opportunity to, one, work with a team, and two, work in technology that I saw had a very positive potential for our future, it was a no-brainer to come in. Part of my not being able to go back to work as an independent financial advisor was I was on maternity leave, and I always say it in quotations because it wasn't paid leave. I just took time out after I had my son. Before I went back to work, and the directors of the company said, oh yeah, we only want people who are writing high business. So unless you're writing $250,000, we're going to take 70% of your earnings, which isn't conducive to someone who had planned to go back to work part-time. And because I wasn't sat at the table whilst the decision was being made, my needs weren't represented. I'm sure had I been there and said, hang on, what about people like myself? They would have considered it, and we wouldn't have necessarily had the same outcome. But none of those things happened. And there was a few other things that were happening in the industry that I just felt it was going to be too difficult for me to come back into the space. Wow. But I have had a number of times, particularly since being a parent, where my gender has held me back professionally and economically. And now my son is old enough, and I can spend more time sort of coming back into the work world much more fully. I would like to dedicate that by seeing more opportunities for women without being economically disadvantaged. So we have huge opportunities. We're seeing a massive transference of wealth in Web 3.0. Crypto, before this little dip that we've had, surpassed 2.5 trillion market cap. There is just so much opportunity and wealth that we need to have women involved. We do not have enough women in the space at the moment. We didn't back in 2017 when I was having a look around. And it's not just about making sure women have access to this economic development. It's one of the problems that the world is in. Its troubles right now is because we only have a few people at the design table. designing solutions for only a few people. And this technology that we have called blockchain has the opportunity for us to reshape and reframe that. But if only a few people are building with this technology, then we'll only be building solutions for a few again. So there are two reasons why I'm very passionate about making sure we have more women in the space. So in September 2019, I founded The Bigger Pie, which is dedicated to just that, making sure that we have gender equity in this space.
Wonderful, wonderful. I would love to understand, how do you, that moment when you just had your son, you're on maternity leave, you're coming back, and that's the news you get? Like, what did you do at that? How did you feel at that moment?
It was 17 years ago, so let me see if I can remember. I think I just went, as I say, it's not the first time it's happened to me. I've had circumstances which are now deemed to be illegal, whether or not companies still practice them. I overheard somebody speaking, the board of directors were talking about getting a new position in a job that I had previous. And I could tell from the side of the conversation that I was overhearing was that my name was put forward. And the answer was, well, she'd have to be in charge of all of the men, and they won't respect a woman. So that was a no. And then they ended up hiring a sales director who was male. And the entire team that he was reporting to him were female. But at no point did they say, well, hang on a minute, it's an all-female team. Women won't respect him. And then he just went around and just tried to have sex with everyone in the office anyway. So it was just a nightmare. And so I guess being told that you can't come back to work unless you're prepared to sort of do it at a full-time basis, I was just like, okay, I'll find something else.
Yeah. Do you think that was unique to the sector that you were in, or the industry that you were in?
So the story that I told you about a previous role that I was in was a very different sector. I retrained to become a financial advisor. It was definitely an issue for the sector I was in as a financial advisor. I was the only female advisor in the firm. So we had people in a similar age range to me. So a lot of people were just about to have a family or had a family, all at that younger stage when it does take more care. They're not at school and teenagers and can fend for themselves a lot more. But none of them had the responsibility of making sure that they were providing childcare. So none of them considered that as a role for an IFA. That's my understanding.
Do you think that the workspace for women today is better than 17 years ago?
I can't answer that because I have been doing my own thing for the last however long. So I've never worked in corporate. I don't know what that looks like. What I am excited about, though, is in this space, in our space, we have seen a huge boom, particularly in the DeFi summer, where the sector is growing so quickly that they can't find enough talent, enough people with the skills to do it. And they are also doing it during a pandemic, which is still ongoing. I know that there are different restrictions for different countries in terms of movement, but it's meant that this industry has had to grow borderless. It's part of what we're able to do here. But it's grown borderless, which means we have remote flexible working that is baked into everyone, not just a few. And I think that's an exciting opportunity if we can allow women in tech leave the sector after 10 years at twice the rate of their male colleagues do. And the biggest reason is the lack of flexibility for their working conditions. So imagine how much talent is sat at home because they can't find working opportunities that allow them to possibly and probably do a full-time job, but just with the flexibility of the hours that they need. And we've got this massive lack of talent, particularly for software engineers. And I want to marry those two so that we can solve the problem for the shortfall of engineers and also make sure that we're bringing more women into the space.
So I would guess two things have probably boosted women into the space. One, lack of talent. Therefore, we need to hire whoever's out there who knows a little bit about crypto.
Who is
And
talented, yeah.
yeah, who's talented and still has the skills to perform, but maybe outside of the usual talent pool.
Yeah.
And COVID basically introducing new ways of working, more flexibility from home, etc., remote working, and just tapping into that borderless ecosystem.
Yes. I think we have two opportunities there that we need to make sure that we can take advantage of.
I feel like it echoes back to, the divide that we see maybe in STEM in general, and women maybe less going towards technical studies, and therefore there's less maybe women that are developers or software developers. Like, do you is it just inherent that women are going to be in position, and that's just how I see it as well, is that more women are going to be in positions of PR, communications, HR, marketing, and
I
less
think
on the tech side?
I think the issue is we don't have a pipeline problem, we have a role model problem. So when computers were first invented, they were calculated in woman hours because the computations that computers took over were the computations that women were doing. Then when we needed to start coding these computers, again, it was done by women because that seemed to be the natural progression. However, once it became, and the other thing is great because women hours are paid a lot less than men hours. So, nice and efficient and all perfectly legal back in the day. Then it became apparent that coding actually was an important job. And I believe in the UK, the government spent a fortune on bringing men into tech because there was a lack of men in tech. It was dominated by women.
Really? I'm sorry, that I feel like that's a part of history that I do not know.
Yeah. Well, this is all I'm discovering. I'm like, why are we in the situation we're in now? And this is the story, right? So then they brought a whole bunch of men in. They got the women to train the men up so that they could take their jobs and go into senior management roles because women weren't allowed to do that. And now we have a problem that we don't have enough women in tech. Well, I'm kind of not surprised. The other thing is, in one generation, when we had the PC, the personal computer came in, then there's a lot of research to suggest that actually what happened was computers were bought for boys. Their fathers would sit down with them and help them with gaming or coding. My dad did that with us. My dad did that with us. He only had daughters, so I can't tell whether he would have done it with us if we were his daughters and he had a son to choose from. But we had a ZX Spectrum. I remember doing basic coding. I remember having to type in, I was about 7 or 8. If I had carried on that journey, I would have definitely been in coding because I did maths, physics, chemistry, English at school. I just didn't know that this was a career path that I could have followed. And once we got into machine coding, so the machine coding then was just a whole range of numbers. And there would be magazines with pages and pages and pages of these numbers. So my dad obviously would take his child labor and say, right, sit down and do 3 pages, and then you take a sister and take a turn. And then very quickly after that, because I don't think that many people across the world had that many children that they could get to type in the machine coding, it would come in a tape. So then you would put the tape into the tape recorder and play it, and it would talk to your computer. So then I wasn't really coding anymore.
I don't know. I don't
It's
know
a
if it's
history
like
lesson, I know.
it's like no, but I love it. I love it. I love this conversation because I realize I have no idea what we're talking about right now. I don't know. I am not familiar with what you're talking about. The pages of code that you input it and then goes onto a cassette, goes into a machine. I'm missing that, and I feel like I should know, but I don't. What was it? So your dad would make you basically input numbers, and so basically, is that what you're talking about? Like this coding
Yes.
tasks
So
that were considered like menial, not interesting and not.
Yeah. So when that was just because he would subscribe to computer magazines, and if you wanted to download a program, then you would program it yourself. This was now in machine coding.
Oh my
So
God.
it was just a string of numbers. So I didn't learn anything from that. I had no idea what those numbers meant or how they represented. Basic coding I could understand. So, the go-to commands and print and run, that made sense to me. I could learn that. But just a series of numbers didn't mean anything to me. And so my coding education sort of ended there. But I think I would have been good at it.
Do you think it's interesting, maybe you're mentioning the role figure of the father, buying the computer, teaching his children how to, okay, I'm going to put quotes here for coding, but isn't that for all children out there that are considering, this world of software development, if at all, to just be introduced to computers by your parents? Is that first very important step that
It
it's
is.
that in the house already that you had a computer, like
Yeah.
not,
So it is, but what's happened is that when there was more coding around, because now, especially on Web 2.0, we have most of the UX and the design, right? You could be introduced to, I think women are introduced to things like Instagram and becoming influencers and having opportunity to use the tech in a different way as opposed to create the tech and build the tech.
Yeah.
They're using it, but they're using it in the way it's being introduced into their home. But before that, we had a generation of sons who were introduced and encouraged into tech. So we didn't have any role models for women. Women had been actively removed from coding right from the very beginning. And now we just don't have role models. And if women are coming into tech because they're leaving tech after 10 years at twice the rate, we have a retention and role model issue. If we solve the retention and role model issue, we'll have a huge pipeline.
Do you have any role models at this point that you can point at and be like, this is someone that all women out there and young girls should look at because her career or her work dedication or what she's doing is something to look up to?
Well, this is embarrassing. I can't list you a bunch of women in tech. I mean, we've got the Bumble IPO, we've got the Canva IPO, and that is great to see women, CEOs and doing IPOs and becoming unicorns and billionaires, and that's great. I mean, just more of those would be wonderful. And then we can see, because Bumble effectively is a tech company, right? It's a dating app, but it's based on tech. So more of this, please. That's what I'd like to see. Loads of the stuff around tech is all based on Ada Lovelace. Based on Ada Lovelace. But she's she's a historical figure. Can we have more, current figures that are, names like Zuckerberg and Bezos and Gates and Jobs?
But it's interesting, and here I'm just going to be, I think this I'm picking up from a Jordan Peterson podcast, but those positions, I know. I know. But those, quote unquote CEOs that everybody's looking up to, these multi-billionaire that we're supposed to put on pedestals and that our society is glorifying at this moment, are not really positions that I would envy at all. These are, maybe our society is glorifying, maybe we're wrong in how we're glorifying certain individuals, but there is something to be said about having a quality of life, and I'm not sure those guys have that.
No, I mean, sidetracking slightly, I want to have more role models. Do I want to have more Bezos? Absolutely not. I just want us to have role models, and this is the wonderful thing about when women come into business, and it's not just women. When you have diversity of thought, right? So if you only hire people who've been through the same 4 schools in the US, it doesn't matter that much about their cultural identity because they've been through exactly the same educational program. They've got they've been through the same schools. They've been taught in the same way. Is that really? How diverse is your thoughts? How diverse are your experiences if they just do that? It's a bit more than looking just on the outside of people's experiences. But when women come in, the research shows that you do have a better diversity of thought. So you're able to see problems where if you don't have that experience, you don't see. And we've seen plenty of examples and faux pas.
That makes sense. And if you're like building a proper business, you do want multiple inputs to just, battle test what you're offering and what services you're offering. To go back to the education point, I think you're right. It's the whole, actually the men that we were just mentioning right now that are role models, whatever that means. None of them have actually finished school. So there's something to be said about people, okay, men in this situation, but also women should be encouraged to drop out of school and not go through the usual curriculum, break out, dare, and be disagreeable. Would that be, because I feel, and for being a woman who has been
And have
taught
a
to,
garage that your parents will support whilst
yeah,
you build a business. I mean, it's
something
not
like,
just
yeah, okay, you need a lot of things. You need a
yeah,
lot of things.
yeah.
But
Exactly,
I
but
was taught to be so agreeable. Like I went through the whole schooling system. I did all of the, I crossed all the T's, and that didn't do anything for me in crypto. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's
So you're touching on a number of issues here
yeah,
about how society conditions certain genders to
yes,
perform in certain roles, and
definitely.
then and then if you have intersectionality on that. So women, please be agreeable. Women, please don't raise your voice too much.
Yeah, be
Um,
nice. That's
if
it.
you're if
Sweet
you're
and nice.
if you're black, you're shut down even faster. I can't tell you the research that I've been doing on it. I live in North Norfolk. There is no diversity here at all.
Mm.
So I'm so looking forward to actually living somewhere where there is cultural diversity on every level. But the research I'm doing about, because as much as I'm understanding about this technology and what's going on, which is impossible to keep up with because it's just moving so quickly, I'm also having to educate myself as to what will work and what doesn't work and why hasn't it worked, and why are we in the situation we're in, and if I'm representing gender equity, that can't just be white women, right? There has to be gender equity across the broad spectrum of half the population. And yeah, so if you're, if you are neurodiverse, if your gender identity isn't the tick box cis thanks very much, there are so many ways that you're being conditioned not to be who you are, to be quiet, not to share your thoughts, and it's hugely damaging. It's damaging for people emotionally, personally, and in terms of creativity and understanding what we can bring to the world, what solutions we can bring out there. So
I think it's interesting, but I feel like this, to go back to the idea that COVID has given us more flexibility, and maybe this is wishful thinking, but I feel like it also opened up into people's homes. There's also that's another thing that I've noticed, is that you see what's happening in the background, family members, pets, home decoration, and it's making, even though we're not in the office anymore, it's making also people more human in a way, bringing more of that flexibility. Do you think more emotion as well is happening? Are people being more
I
open?
think I think the idea that you can be, it's more difficult to hide yourself and put on your work persona, right?
Mm.
I don't think anyone who had to go into the office wearing a suit all the time, even if they were wearing a suit, we knew that it was only on the top half, right? Everyone knew that they were choosing not to do that on the bottom half if they did have to put on a suit for a Zoom call.
Yeah.
The idea, I mean, what was great in terms of parenting and care for that unpaid care work that is normally fallen on the shoulders of women, is that whilst that might still be the case, I think a lot of the dads got to see actually how much work is done rather than it being behind closed doors when they're off to work. So a greater appreciation, and therefore maybe a greater opportunity for them to say, actually, I've got some of this. It's, especially when the schools were shut and people were trying to work. So there's lots of the good things around it, but one of the things that we were saying just before this is we're not actually getting to see each other. We haven't got that opportunity to hug and to have that experience of energy that we swap, which is different in person than it is online. That intuitive, that those moments that you can have with people where you kind of just, oh, I've got you. And you can see how people act in an environment much more easily, and who's going to speak up more. So I think there's a lot that was positive. And I love the fact that we now have a much greater acceptance and understanding that we don't have to be in person for every meeting. It doesn't make sense, but we should have a blend where we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I miss hugging. I must admit, I sadly we went back into mini lockdown here, and I couldn't host my events, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
Lavinia was in Amsterdam and I couldn't host crypto drinks, and I was really looking forward to showing her that side of crypto here,
Yes.
and the people, and it's just not the same. Like we can meet up online, but it doesn't beat hugging and like you said, being in the same room and seeing each other and touching each other. But
Yeah. And hugs are important. They're important for
yeah,
our immune system, which is
yeah.
hilarious that we're not allowed to do them when we need to have a strong immune system. But that is the world that we currently are in.
It's crazy. But I'm curious now. I'm just thinking about your son. Actually, I'm thinking about him. Thinking you as his mother, being aware of all of these things. Have you showed him how to code? Do you have this? How is it in the house? Do you guys game together? Is this? I don't know. Like,
Well,
what's his vision of all of this and about you
he's
being a dad?
he's. I mean, he is not, with the greatest of respect, he is not the part of the population that we have a problem with. He is a straight white cis male who goes to a private school.
Sounds like a great kid. He's
He
not a.
enjoy. No. What I'm saying is, we don't have to worry about him. The world's already built for him. He's fine.
Oh.
He's going to be fine. I mean, he might have to adapt to the world changing to be open to a few more people, but hopefully, me being his mum has given him that emotional intelligence and breadth of thought to be able to do that. But yeah, no, he's doing computer science. He wants to be a mechanic of some sort.
Yeah.
Loves Formula One, plays rugby. I mean, he couldn't be more stereotypical if you tried. And yeah, I blame that on his dad. And that's meant with all good humor, right?
Okay.
No.
I'm just, for me, it's always interesting to hear about how we bring up, and I don't have children yet, but to wonder of what is the education of tomorrow, or is there an education of tomorrow? Do we need to change how we teach? What is important to learn?
100%.
Yeah.
We 100% need to change how we teach. When you look at what education was, and I am no educational expert at all, but education at the time was created 100 years ago for a certain outcome. Having been through the educational system, I still gullibly think, oh, education is there to educate our children. It's not. It's for them to pass exams.
Yeah.
Which is not education at all. Plus, passing exams for what? For jobs that we haven't even imagined the jobs that they're going to be doing in 10 years' time, right? The fact that you think you can go through school and then through university and be qualified for a job that's going to last more than, I don't know, only a few years before it's going to get disrupted and changed. So we need to be on a continual learning path. We need to be able to understand the different ways that people can learn. It's not just sitting in a classroom. Some people like to just study meticulously on their own. Other people like to learn through, communication and activities. My son cannot stand learning anything by rote, not at all. Has no interest in that whatsoever. Finds it the most boring thing in the world, and also therefore doesn't try. I'm not saying he doesn't try. Hasn't got a natural gift to it either. So he finds that desperately dull. But if you ask him to solve a problem, he's all over it. He loves it. Either, a problem in maths or a problem in a coding challenge or a problem in assembling something. He's absolutely flying. He could do that all day, every day. So we just need to understand what are the different ways that different people enjoy and learn. And learning learning should be experiential. Like, it shouldn't be theoretical. I don't know how much crypto stuff I've read about. It's all theoretical. I've got no way to make it tangible, experiential. And I have to learn it 4, 5, 6, 7 times because I keep forgetting what it is. But whenever I can get involved in something and see it working and I'll handle it and be visceral and understand what happens when you do lose your private keys and, all those other things, then it's like, oh, I do really understand that one now. Okay, got it.
No, it's I totally agree. And the whole experimental thing about crypto is you lose, you learn, and you lose again, and you start all over again. It's not a straight path. It's
Nope.
not a straight path at all. And I mean, you've seen how I do my classes with the workshop, and I know that it's a lot for first taste to crypto, but I feel like you got to start somewhere because you can read about crypto and look at videos about crypto for months and still not touch crypto. You know what I mean? and I know that some people are always a bit like, oh my God, but like, they have no clue. And I'm already like, give me your public address, drop it in the Zoom. Here's a wallet. Here's your private keys. And they're a bit like, ooh,
Yeah,
but
but that's what you need. It really is. I mean, I had
yeah,
my friend do that for me. Oh, Bridget,
yeah,
send me some money. Now download this and do that. And I
yeah,
was like, okay, now send me some to make sure that you understand how to send it. And I was like, okay, good, good. And I still
yeah,
get very nervous because I'm like, should I test a little bit first rather than send it
yeah,
all and it be wrong?
yes,
But then
yes.
if it's on Ethereum, the fees are so much.
Oh,
You're like, oh my God. I did that yesterday. I had some USDT and some USDC, not talking
yeah,
about large amounts, but
yeah.
not amounts that I would be okay to lose. And it
Mm-hmm.
was $60 in fees because it's a minimum of $20 every time you send a little bit. And I thought, oh, okay, well,
That's
that was expensive.
terrible. I can't, like, that really bugs me about Ethereum right now is that they've ticked all the other boxes. They have the good tech, they're decentralized. It's, we've built a whole industry on top of that blockchain. And it's currently not really easy to use. And yes, of course, layer twos and stuff, but like it's still, I mean, it's not okay that you're paying $60 to transact. That's not money, right?
And yeah, and that was just a transfer. I didn't actually manage to do the transaction. I was trying to get into an idea which had been oversubscribed by the time I'd figured it all out. So
Really?
$60 for nothing. Thanks very much.
Do you how do you invest? Maybe I feel like that's something we don't always talk about as well in crypto. Like what is your profile? What do you like to invest in? Do you invest a lot? Are you a trader? Like what's your profile in the crypto
Definitely not
space?
a trader. Absolutely
Mm.
not. Fastest way for me to lose money. I mean, just transferring from USDT to another
Yeah.
wallet, I could lose
Yeah.
money. So if I'm
Yeah.
trying to trade, I mean, so I used to, as I said, I used to be an independent financial advisor before.
Right.
All of the research shows that actually, the more active you are in your trading, the less likely you are to do as
Mint.
well,
Yeah.
because it's impossible to predict
Mm.
when the lowest point is and when the highest point is.
Yeah.
And the more times that you're out of the market, the more times you're going to miss those opportunities. And lots of research again says how women are better traders because they have less activity in their trading.
Mm.
There's this thing between competence and confidence.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is, by the way, one, I love my son greatly, and I was talking about him in terms of demographics and
Yeah.
who the system's open to and who it's not. Two, I also adore men. Right? This is not about suggesting that one sex is better than the other. This is about having the data that shows why we should have a system that allows both genders, or all genders, should I say, the same access to opportunities. And because we have different strengths, we've all been through the same conditioning on a macro level, right? Where we see, we're exposed to similar media. We see that there's very much half the world is owned by 12 men, right? That's a true experience for everyone. And I know that's a whole conversation in of itself. But there is this thing that talks about competence versus confidence. And very early on, by about 6 years old, girls have been conditioned by society to not have the confidence to match their competence. And boys can go off and have confidence that doesn't match their confidence, but their confidence is superior to their competence. And for girls, their confidence is inferior to their competence. And that has further implications on the world. But that goes back to the whole thing of being conditioned to don't make waves, be nice, It's less about your competence and speaking up and more about how you conform.
I feel like I have to share the most random anecdote right now. This is so interesting, this confidence moment, which I mean we all experience all the time. Men that should not say things and they do because they have confidence, but no competence. One moment, I was part of something called Impact in Geneva. It was a 3-day kind of booth camp, empowering youth, you're a challenge maker, everybody's a change maker, like that type of like, it was really fun and really interesting, and I learned a lot through those experiences. And at some point, I don't know if you're familiar with the Marshmallow challenge. It's one of those like,
Yeah,
it's
when you
yeah.
ask a 2-year-old to
No, that's the eating one. No, that's no. So it also uses a marshmallow, but it's not about eating it. And if you don't eat it,
waiting, right? Okay, it's a different one.
it's about building a structure. You get, I think, 1 meter of like string, and then spaghettis, scotch tape, and a marshmallow. And you have like 20 minutes as a team to build a structure with those things. And the highest structure of this, you imagine like 50 participant, and you split them into 10 groups or something, and everybody's now working on the sort of a pyramid made of scotch tape, spaghetti. It's insane. Like, it's really fun, and it's a great, obviously, leadership exercise. This guy in my group is like, I know the experience, I've seen it online or something, so puts himself in a status of credibility. I know how we're going to do this. He starts tying these spaghettis with scotch tape and everything. And I'm like, this is not going to work. Like, what he's doing right now, it's going to fall. This marshmallow is never going to stand on this thingy. It's insane. He's building like this sort of pyramid with like spaghettis that are like a meter and a meter 50 high. It's all wiggly and bad. But it took me so long to speak up. Like, I knew from the get-go this was a bad idea. I could see that structurally, and you don't need to be an architect to feel that something's not going to be structurally sound. But he was going with it, and he had so much confidence that this was going to work. And I was, the more the time went by, I was like, oh my God, I need to speak up. I'm not, and I couldn't speak up. I knew it was not going to work. And only like, I think 3 minutes before the end of the challenge, I'm like, no. And I break off the top. Like, I break, because this thing is not holding, and I break it off. It's barely standing, but I like cut it in half basically of its height. The guy did not stop lying. And actually what happened is that he did not know. He had not seen a video, but he had put himself in this, I don't know why suddenly he thought, this is the moment I'm going to shine, I'm going to do this, and ran with it with so much confidence. And I couldn't believe it. For me, that was an eye opener. Speak up early. You know better. This guy doesn't know shit. And there's some moments like that when it happens, and it does always blow my mind when it happens. But there's a lot of that in crypto. There's a lot of confidence running around, and a lot of men that are saying that I have the best idea, the best project, the best token economics. You need to do all this and this and this. And I feel like more and more I'm learning still today to speak up and cut those spaghettis earlier. There's no way that Marshmallow is reaching that level. It's
I love
not
that.
happening.
We're going to have to use that. Cut the spaghetti. Let the
Cut
marshmallow reach its level.
Damn it. No, but it's insane. And guess what? That guy didn't show up the next day. That Marshmallow guy. I think he was embarrassed. I think he realized what he did was wrong. It's such a simple moment, right? There was no consequences. There was no people losing money and getting scammed. But he realized he did something bad. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I feel as women we're just taught to be so agreeable and kind and sweet, and not.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's not, and this is why I feel strongly about sharing this. Is I really believe that we are conditioned. We are not born this way. It is not a gender difference because of the way that we're made up. It's a gender difference for the way that we are treated in the world, what we see, how we see it, all the way through our parents, our teachers, and it's unconscious bias, which means that people aren't doing it on purpose to, definitely thinking, right, that's a girl, that's a black girl, I definitely need to keep her quiet. It's instinctual. We just seem to be learned from society, this is what we do. So we need to have design practices in place to change our behavior. We can't ask people to behave differently, because when it's on an unconscious level, you can maybe look back and reflect on things, but that's a design principle. Take some time and look back on your day-to-day. Where are the times that you feel that on reflection you perhaps fell into an unconscious bias that wasn't positive? But yeah. So we keep going. We never quite get to
That's
the end of the
great.
first
I
question. So as
know.
long as you're fine with that, then we can carry
I
on.
don't mind. Well, I like it. I'm also,
Then it's your show, so we carry
yeah,
on.
I love it. I've really embraced. I realized I got diagnosed last year with ADD, not knowing that was a thing, not realizing I had it, and growing up being very good at school. Like I always like to like I wasn't diagnosed, I think, and that's again a bias in health
And
where
gender, yeah, yeah.
where little boys get diagnosed with ADHD because they can't sit still
Hmm.
in classrooms, and it gets diagnosed very early, so therefore let's put them all like on tranquilizers basically.
Which isn't the
And little girls apparently, and the bias with ADD and is actually I had no I was in class, I could sit still. I could sit still. But maybe teachers would notice that I wasn't always paying attention, or I would get distracted, or I would start talking a lot. But those things weren't frowned upon, right? Those were just like, oh, Ellie's just like, she's a sweet kid and she does her homework anyway, so it's fine. And it took
mm.
me almost 30 years to get diagnosed and realize that this is something, and this explains a lot of things in my life. Like literally everything, like from, how I speak, how I get distracted, how I think about different things, so many things, so many things. But hey, I got diagnosed, so that's really nice, and it explained a lot, and I can now work with it. So when I see conversations like taking their own turn, or meetings sometimes where I overspeak, I'm like, that's okay. It's part of me, and it's okay. And I think it's something different, right? It's difference that is okay to have diversity again. Going back to that
Mm.
that idea that if we are different, it's fine because my brain thinks differently
Well,
than
exactly.
others.
If you're providing a customer experience journey
Yeah,
for people, a significant portion of the world has ADD.
yeah,
ADD, did you say it was?
yeah.
Um, and and so having someone in that design process to go, oh, at this point I'm off. I'm
Yeah,
gone
I'm
somewhere
bored.
else.
I'm bored. Excuse me, this is 15 steps. I can barely do 3.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing: it's the
Yeah.
same when you design something for people who are vision impaired, or for people who are hearing impaired.
Yeah.
Those who have no impairment have a better experience with what you've designed as a result of it. It's not, oh, you've made it better for people with a hearing impairment and everybody else is suffering. Everyone gets a better experience.
Yeah, definitely. I wish certain things had less steps. Let's go back to
That
the
was me
bigger.
yesterday.
No,
Do I have to transfer? Then I have to put it
it's
into
like,
my
wait,
MetaMask. I've only recently got a MetaMask, which is, considering how long I've been in crypto, which is ridiculous. And now
no.
I have to add custom tokens. Okay, now I've done that, and now I have to go on to a different chain, and then I have to do this. And I swear to God, I was there for 90 minutes. I was getting crosser and crosser and crosser and crosser.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, apparently it's oversubscribed, even though it says it's still open. That's why it keeps saying insufficient funds. Because I was expecting it to say, I was reading it as insufficient funds on my behalf, not on their behalf. Oh man,
That's no, but that's fascinating. And actually, all the user experience that you went through was super frustrating, and it has to be improved. There's somewhere there where things should be much easier, and I think the space has gone pretty well in that sense, that I think things are easier than in 20, and I wasn't there, but like 2012, 2013, 14.
well, we didn't have half those things that I
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah, and but
It's
even
part of the steps.
the wallet infrastructure was not there.
You
Like
just had
that's
Bitcoin as well, so it
But
was a bit
even
more
that,
simple.
like even running a wallet was like a whole thing. It
Yeah,
wasn't like today where we have like, I don't know, like 10, 15 non-custodian wallets to choose from mobile, and that are not
yeah. Well,
ugly.
this is
Like,
the thing. I mean, it shows that there is so much opportunity for people to come in with different skill sets. Creating a better UX journey is a skill set that a whole bunch of people already have, and we just need to make sure that we invite them. Women, women particularly. Can you hear this message? Because the men are already coming in. We want the women to come in too, please. Across so many disciplines.
would you like, if you were like to give a call to women out there listening to this podcast? Because I was actually checking the data on these little podcasts that I do, and half of the audience is female. I was like, oh my God. I have an equal audience.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, isn't it? You have a female host who is interesting, intelligent, has incredible guests on, and people can immediately see, hey, this is for I see myself in this. I can see a person reflected.
Yeah.
And if things are designed with gender balance in mind, it doesn't put men off, just attracts everyone. So,
Yeah.
so what would I say to the women? I would say to the
Yeah.
men. I say to the men and the women. You know, guys, if you know some really great, curious women, please direct them to this podcast, to the Bigger Pie community, to women in blockchain communities, where they can come in and dip their toe in the water, discover their curiosity, and then accelerate their progression into their careers here. I was talking to a few people in the Bigger Pie actually, and they were saying your career progression in this space is 4 times as fast as it is in the traditional space. It's growing so fast that it will take you 4 years to move in position and in salary increase will take you 1 year. And why would you not come in? And you can shape the world, right? You can shape building a better world. Don't wait until it's built. Come in and help us build it.
I like that. I like this call to action of being able to shape the future. We're definitely, and don't let anyone think that. I feel like I hear this a lot, like, oh, it's too late. I felt it was too late. Do you remember that feeling? Maybe I also came in the same time as you, like 2017.
Yeah.
And I already remember feeling like, oh my God, there's no way I'm catching up. I felt just like the train's going so fast.
It's so nascent right now. It's so new. We can't even imagine what is still yet to be built on here. But in the same way as we thought the internet was going to democratize us, in the same way we thought social media was going to democratize us, unless we have people who are using this technology to build things that are fairer, more sustainable, the technology won't be used for that. So please come in and help us shape and build. And if you have ideas but you're not technical, we can help you with that. If you've got technical ideas but you need other support team members in there, we can help with that. You know, if you want to go and work for a firm, we can help with that. If you want education, we can help with that. There are lots of communities out there designed just to do that.
Definitely. It is a space, I think, where, you know, the whole like manifest it is a thing in this space. Like if you actually like drop into any community and you're like, hi, my name is da da da, this is what I know, this is what I want to do, people, I feel like the chances of someone reaching out to you are really high. Like it's really about just, and maybe that's the scary part, is it does require putting yourself out there. I am lost. I am looking for something. I need this. In the beginning, at least, you have to sort of not be afraid to ask for help.
Throughout the rest of our journeys, the most intelligent people are the ones who ask questions, not the ones who give the answers. You know, it's asking the right questions. And the way that you ask a question can completely and utterly change people's minds about something. Oh, I always thought it was this, but now that you've asked the question that way, maybe we need to look at a solution that is covers that. You know, so there's loads of great ways that we can learn just from asking questions. Your curiosity, this idea of the experience that we were talking about. We have different experiences, so we learn things differently, we see things differently. So yeah, ask your questions. But look, if asking your questions, because I love to learn through people, right? And as I said, different people like to learn through different things. I am naturally quite a gregarious person, and I'm old enough now to figure out that I'm not the one who needs to know everything. I want to be the bridge, as well named, that connects all of the Bigger Pie is about saying, here, let us help you on your pathway and your journey and connect you to all the resources, the communities, the opportunities, the education, the roles, and we'll help you with that. We'll hold your hand through that journey. You'll have a community of peers who will support you. You'll get mentoring, you'll get coaching, and you'll walk into environments with much more agency. Much more confidence to match your competence. But if you aren't the sort of person who wants to ask a question in a group, I have it all the time. People DM me. So just reach out to one person. And if you're in the Bigger Pie, reach out to me. I am more than happy. I do not know all the answers, but I know the people who know the answers. So then I'll either go back into the group and ask the question myself so that we can get the answer without having, somebody having to be named if they're not comfortable with that. or I'll set up a private group saying, this is the question that's being raised. Can you please help and connect? Because I think you guys are going to know it might be about fashion and metaverse. So, you know, there's a handful of people who are in that field that I could bring into that conversation. We've had that when it comes to salary negotiations, because C-suite salary negotiations where tokens are involved as well as cash, as well as equity in this new space. How do you know what the market price is? How do you know what to look for? What are the different agreements that should happen? You know, this is not transparent and out there. So again, we bring in people who have experience with that, and we can hold that conversation with you. Asking questions is great, because then we'll run workshops for everyone to participate and learn, contribute in that. So yeah, so I'll either put on events to try and answer the question. If I can answer it, I will. I'll introduce you privately. I'll introduce you publicly in the group so everyone else can learn from that question. There's just a whole bunch of ways that we can help you, or I'll just put you to some resources, you know. But if you don't ask, we can't serve you.
Definitely. And it's an amazing work you're doing. Everything you've just described, you know, connecting people, being there, being responsive. Do you ever feel, I mean, as a community builder, do you ever feel overwhelmed, you know, by these messages, in the sense like it's a lot? Like, because I know the Bigger Pie is pretty big now, just in terms of sheer numbers. How do you deal with it?
Well,
Do
my
you have
response.
cut-off times? Do you turn off your phone sometimes?
No, I mean, my responsive time is anywhere from absolutely immediately to, oh crap, I missed that message, and it's 3 weeks later and I'm so sorry. And I've got one of those right now. Now I've said it, I was like, oh damn, I haven't done that, and I keep meaning to go back into it. That's the thing about, you know, when we've got these platforms, is at least in email I can say unread and then just show the unread emails so I can go through them. But on Telegram, on WhatsApp, you can't organize it that way yet. So if anyone's, you know, feel free to solve that for us. That would be very useful. But no, I mean, I'm just literally blown away. This is just what happened, right? So when we had COVID first came in, and it was scary. We didn't know what was going on. We were globally locked down. We had streets of London and New York, which normally has millions of people milling around it, just completely empty. And then also you were locked in with whoever you were locked in with. So for some people that was fine. For other people that was either on your own, or, you know, if you're younger, you're probably in a house with more people and less room. Then, you know, I mean, I was lucky because I was in Norfolk at the time, so I had a garden and space and what have you, and plenty of places to do walks. But anyway, it was a scary time, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how long we were on pause for. So you're like, okay, well, this is unique. How does one navigate it? And then I saw Jenna Pache and Victoria Thompson take charge of their local community, not crypto, just their local community. And they made sure that those who couldn't get out had opportunity for supplies. They organized how those supplies could be paid for. And they just went, we're just going to serve our community. And they went, okay, that's what I'll do. So we arranged coffee mornings on Zoom and things like this. But that made me feel as though I wasn't at the mercy of something I had no control of. But, you know, that inspiration came from the community members. And I just get such reward by people, the testimonies we have about how they've got promotions, got new jobs, discovered opportunities, etc., etc. And then seeing how the community serves itself. Like, there's no way this works if everyone's relying on me to do everything. It's absolutely not at all. And so, it's just being involved with all of these incredible women in this community. And I'm looking forward to being able to work more with the whole ecosystem and add men onto that as well. Because these last 2 years of building the reputation, of building the support system, of building the community, of understanding how to support women and trying out and piloting all of those ideas, we're there now, and now it's time to get serious, and now it's time to it's time to really grow it and take all our learnings into place, and that requires interacting with everyone. But just spending time in the community fills my soul. So if you'll forgive me when sometimes I miss messages or I take a bit longer.
I feel like I'm for me, it is difficult sometimes to follow up with everyone, and I do get overwhelmed sometimes, and I just suddenly,
Well,
it's just like it's too much. But
I do.
I also share the reward, like you just shared, like when something does go well, when I can help someone, when I can make meaningful connections, like that's priceless. Actually, there's no price to it usually. It's
Yeah.
just, it's your time, it's your passion, it's you knowing people and just connecting the dots and being like, you need to talk to that person, and that person absolutely need to be part of your project, or at least talk to them. And I do try to do that as much as I can. I think that is the role that we're set in when we try to manage communities, is that we're also fostering it and giving value to them. But sometimes I do feel overwhelmed,
But
and I'm like,
so think about what the overwhelm is. Is the overwhelm guilt?
no, it's
It,
just it's
it,
like
it,
the sheer amount of private messages sometimes. But I'm not.
maybe you get more than I do, but which is fine. But I mean, I tend to think so. Things like overwhelm, like if I need a break, I take a break. I have, as part of my getting old and the lessons that we learn in life, like I'm only one person, I can only do so much.
Yeah.
And don't compare myself to somebody else, because if I say I'm only one person and I compare myself to other people in the group, I'm not like, yeah, but they're not human. I don't know how they do as much as they do, because I work quite hard and I work quite long hours, yet they still just produce so much stuff. So I'm not going to compare myself. I'm going to do my best. The idea of being perfect is the worst thing for a community leader who is trying to empower, allow other people to have agency. You do not want to be perfect. If that's the case, how can anyone show up with their authentic selves? So I say doesn't mean say you see every message that's in there, but I share sometimes when I have anxiety. I shared when I was having a difficulty with what was going on with my parents' health and what have you, because I think we should be able to show up as 360 degrees of who we are.
It's,
so I can
I'm learning, and it's nice to see other examples actually of women being more vulnerable. I feel like there's a tendency either to, it's all these stigmas again, right? It goes back to the socialization we've been brought up with. Women are sweet, nice, competent, reliable, and do not be weak, right? If you're weak, you're out of the game. And maybe those are just, internal socialization to get over with at some point and be like, okay,
vulnerability,
away with that. But it's hard.
Vulnerability is strength. So it depends how you frame things and how you feel about them. Vulnerability is 100% strength. If you can't recognize all feelings, how can you process them? Yeah. How can you be aware? See, your Marshmallow guy, right? He wasn't able to show a vulnerable side. So he went, I have to be confident despite my lack of competency. I can't show that I'm vulnerable. That's not a good leader. And then he didn't show up the next day. Yeah. So he wasn't able to process what happened, why it happened. Yeah. He wasn't able to catch himself beforehand. Vulnerability, read Brené Brown stuff. There's a whole work on it, researched academically, in field work. So yeah, vulnerability is about strength. It's about knowing who you are, where you're at, what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you need to set your boundaries, what you can take on that you can do well, what you shouldn't touch.
I've learned so much about, I think that's been a constant work for me since I've been in crypto. It's like, learn how to say no, learn how to put boundaries. You do not have to work with everyone. You shouldn't work with everyone. No. You need to be more strict and you have to say no. It's really, that's been, and it's contradictory to being an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, you're looking for security as well. And you're trying to, also get clients in and money in. But at the same time saying no and being sometimes principled is, that's my journey. That's what I'm learning, is like, and that's difficult, but I love it. And I guess you said it before, crypto is accelerated. I would never have had the opportunities or the situation I'm in if I had gone, let's say, in a traditional sector, and I would, but this is also the complete opposite. This is a lot of freedom, which means that you are your own accountant, business manager, marketeer, everything at once, right? I think there's a TikTok going on right now where it's kind of nice one where it's just like, I am bold, I am sexy, I'm smart, it's like this TikTok that sort of like shows that a woman is like multifaceted and not just one thing.
Mm.
Um, but it's difficult to, I guess, be in crypto and want or to be all of those things. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm rambling, but I'm thinking right now of a woman in crypto, which I look up to, and for any woman out there looking for inspiration, and I hope one day she'll come on my podcast as well. That's one of my secret.
Say it out loud.
Naomi Brockwell. Like,
Okay.
there's not many women in crypto that I look up to that much. The content she puts out, the quality of it, the educational side of it, while being in crypto for really a long time. And you can also look at her older videos, which were super cute. She used to sing and do like crypto songs and stuff like that. And now, you know, all the way to interviewing Edward Snowden and just making sure that the space grows and is educated about certain values. Yeah, it's hard to be out there as a woman, as a content creator, and not becoming just a shill machine. So the moment, um, I think when you're being paid to shill projects, it gets messy and it's really difficult because it's so tempting. There's so much
Mm.
money. There's so much money to be made to just promote whatever pump and dump is around.
Mm.
And as an educator or anyone out there, um, realize that even if you're being paid really well, someone else is going to lose money. Like,
Mm.
you're making money at the cost of someone else investing, and probably not making as much as you are just for a tweet or for a video or, you know, for a shout out. Yeah,
Yeah,
how do you choose your partners with the bigger pie? Like, is that something do you get pitched by projects that are like, yeah, we're going to give tokens to our community, and you're like, wait, you know?
I don't.
Hmm.
I think our community is too insular.
Hmm.
Our
Because that
community
would
is,
be tempting. You have numbers, right? Like, you know, in the sense, like, if I'm a project who's trying to raise funds or awareness, I would tap definitely into the bigger pie. I'm not saying you should accept it, but no, but like, it's a unique
well,
audience.
I guess there's. You're right. We have a responsibility, right? So not everyone not everyone in the bigger pie is necessarily crypto per se. It's blockchain, DLT. There are but they're all in the space. But so, for example, Geneviève Levet, right? What she's doing with AgriLedger,
Yeah.
she doesn't really do the crypto side of it, but she's doing incredible work that the world needs and winning awards for it, and and seeing the success. So if somebody came to me and said, "Look, if you sell this to your audience, you can make a lot of money,"
Yeah. Would you do it?
not unless it was in alignment. Not
Yeah.
at all. Not unless
Yeah.
it's in alignment. And I would do my best to avoid the conversation about money to keep the temptation off the table. Like, let's find out what you want, what you're aligned with, and what you do. And let me ask you a whole bunch of questions. If that's in alignment with what's going on in the bigger pie, then we can have a conversation about the best ways for you to benefit from the community.
Right.
Yeah, and I do it that way. And just have faith that what I'm going to build, what we're building, what I see in the future is all going to work out without having to, with integrity attached, as you say.
You mentioned earlier that with this tech, you know, we could solve a lot of things. Do you feel like there's also a tendency to expect too much of blockchain? Like, that in the, like, which use cases make sense in crypto? And are there some you think that are, we would like crypto and blockchain to solve it, but it's just not going to happen? Do you feel like there's sometimes a divide there where we're projecting our hopes for the future onto crypto?
I definitely think that blockchain isn't the panacea and the solution to everything, but I think used intelligently and wisely, it is part of a tech stack that can solve some problems, some real world problems. So again, we'll go back to Geneviève Levet. So what she's looking at doing, food insecurity is massive. We have farmers, particularly around the equator, going to bed hungry. I almost cry every time I say that fact, because I don't understand how people are growing in agriculture and they can't even feed themselves. How is that possible? How have we got to a world where that happens? So she's helping mango farmers who are smallholder farmers who wouldn't ordinarily get onto the order of a supply chain to a supermarket, but by helping them to bring all of their product in together, then they can fulfill an order. And then she looks at the steps that is used throughout the entire journey. So she looks at who's responsible for which part. So once the mango has been grown by the farmer and then it's picked up by the people who start to deliver it, the farmer has no control anymore of what's going on. So she just looks at what part of the journey does this person have the responsibility in, and then how can we make sure that they get paid, and there's finance in that to make sure that everyone gets the fair share of what's going on. And ultimately the mango farmers get a much fairer share for what they're doing. But she's also bringing in IoT into this. She's bringing in machine learning into this, because there are ways that we can control with the IoT, read what the conditions are that the mangoes are being transported in. For an easy example, they have to be kept at a certain temperature. So let's use IoTs just to record that and to make sure that is happening. And then once that's been proven to be the case, then those payments can be made because it's already pre-agreed. And then there's various machine learning that she's using to be able to take a lot of the data that they're gathering and make predictions and being able to help. So there's less food wastage, and then more finance. The finance is more evenly distributed to those in the supply chain. That's my summation of what she does. So I think that's a very good use case of blockchain. And then how can we put that into other supply chains?
Interesting. For me, I'm already checking the website, by the way, because I hadn't had a deep dive into AgriLedger at all. It's automatically my brain jumps to the Food Network, which is another blockchain for corporates built in Amsterdam, and I feel like I should put them in contact if they don't already know of each other.
Yeah.
But the whole. I know that the whole supply chain is a mess that it's really hard basically to reward the farmer. The farmer is basically the entity being dumped on, right? And all the middlemen in between, and the time for processing payments is ridiculous. And obviously, transparency and quality of products is always something we're trying to solve. Obviously, for the crypto person inside of me, I'm like, oh, well, it's private blockchain, so not interesting. But there is something to be said. There is something here that has to be unlocked. I was just wondering, does AgriLedger, I would start asking questions like, which blockchains they're using? What consensus algorithms are they using? Is it federated blockchain? I would start I can't find the white paper, but
bring Jean-Pierre on the show.
Yeah, basically. No, but it's I feel like we've had a tendency to, and I've seen every project under the sun, from transparency and quality of weed. We had like ICOs in 2017. I don't know if you remember, focusing on that, all the way to solving pharmaceuticals, and what is it called, counterfeited drugs. And that's where blockchain, ideally would like be something to be used to like sort of timestamp these products. And then there was always sort of the meme, right? Do you sort of just slap a QR code on each pineapple? Is that where we're going? How far does the IoT go? And then, of course, where is this data being, and all these questions of like, if you're using a private blockchain, then you're not using blockchain. Basically, you're just using a very, sometimes more expensive, more cumbersome
database.
So, but we need to have these conversations, and we need to see these products being tested and battle tested. And if it's not working, maybe the market doesn't want it. That's also something as simple as.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of saying that by putting something onto a public ledger solves all the supply chain issues is so naive and simplified. I mean, when you've got corruption that exists in various geographies and jurisdictions around the globe where supply chains have to go, someone's just going to say, well, we're not going to use this system, are we? I mean, it's there's one thing saying, okay, we've invented some code that solves a problem, but getting a user adoption, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it's Merckx, the big shipping company, at some point was like, oh, I remember these were news in 2018. We were getting so excited about it. We're like, oh my god, blockchain's mainstream. Like Samsung using blockchain, and Merckx like trying to do something with their shipping and cargo, and there are more initiatives that way. But obviously, these companies are like, well, actually, we enjoy the opacity. We enjoy. I mean, we're not celebrating it, but our margins are.
Yeah, it keeps us healthy. Well, this is where we need brave companies to come in and say, "Can I swear?"
Well, yeah, of course. Yes, of course you can swear. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I was like, what?
No, it's okay, because then you have to have different things on your. It's F the opacity. We are all about transparency, and if we can see companies do that successfully, then that will put pressure on other companies, right? Saying, well, if they can do it, why can't you? I feel like you're trying to hide something now, so I'm going to choose with my consumer spending not to spend with you. I can see that can work, but it needs somebody somewhere to be able to figure out how to do a supply chain that is open and transparent and public and acceptable.
The question is, I think, in this market, if you go to a supermarket today, it's really hard to know which company is good and not, and these labels are extremely confusing, and sometimes they don't mean anything, and so as a consumer you're usually lost. And so the only reason I would say companies would start using this tech is if it's faster, cheaper, and they make profit, or they are able to lose less money in the process, something like that.
Yeah,
and then they can reflect it on the end price, so the customer would pay more for that transparency and traceability.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would always pay more if I knew that the footprint of what I'm buying, it has done the least amount of harm. That's how low I think the standards are. Is how can I make sure I've done the least amount of harm? Because I'm addicted to avocados. I'm possibly not actually physically addicted to avocados, but I like to eat avocados a lot. But I can't eat an avocado without picking up and go, okay, so now the Mexican cartels are involved with avocados because they're worth so much. So what am I doing on that side? Also, what's the food mileage on this avocado? It's like I was told, you need to eat more oily fish because of the benefits of the omega 3 oils that you can't get anywhere else from fish. And I was like, yeah, but I've seen Seaconspiracy. And every time I buy some fish or try and eat some fish, I'm like, yeah, but did you not see how you're killing the planet? And so, and then I try and buy some clothes and I'm like, well, I could go to Primark because that's really, really cheap and cheerful. But come on, at those prices, they're going to have child labor in their supply chain. And it's been reported that that's been found to be the case. Or I can go and say, right, I'm going to spend $5,000 on a high-end fashion. And guess what? They also have child labor in their supply chain. Yeah, I can't say, okay, I'm going to pay more and then know that I'm doing better. Usually with food, it can say it's organic and it says where it's come from. Right. So at least I have two metrics and I can make an easy consumer decision on. So I would love to be able to scan it that says carbon footprint, food miles, and whether or not, no children were harmed in the making of this avocado. Right. just something like that would be an improved purchasing. And I would do whatever was required to get that information.
It's really interesting. I was brought up obviously watching what's his face, Al Gore's documentary, I can't remember. The one where the world's ending and, the earth and everything and oceans rising. And I studied actually water management because I thought I would work in the environmental sector. I have since, and this might be a bit controversial, but I've since just dropped it completely. And that guilt that we've been put on, I think, is ridiculous. It's hurting us mentally to do like shopping or anything, and it's just I'm not sure we're being properly informed on anything, and this guilt of traveling or eating I want you to eat your avocados with a peace of mind that actually it economically makes sense. Okay, maybe it's not the greatest. You mentioned Mexican mafia. Maybe, but if you did not buy that avocado then that avocado would not be sold abroad and other people would suffer economically. And maybe it's because I've sort of rationalized a lot of things through free market ideals, but I feel like if you're buying it, you want it enough that someone else on the other side of this planet is making a living. Now, is it a great living? Is it is it the standard of living that you're having in the UK? Probably not. Like an avocado
Yeah.
does come
So
from, doesn't grow in Norfolk, but are you going to stop eating avocados?
yeah, pretty much. I
Bridget,
I know. But I mean, honestly, my
eat all the avocados. Enjoy your phone, which has all the rare earth elements that have traveled 3 times around the earth.
okay, but enjoy your phone, but don't enjoy your phone and upgrade it every single 12 months,
Yeah,
right?
okay, that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. That's
use your
yeah,
phone. These things are not disposable. We've
right.
become such a disposable
Yes,
society. We don't wait for things. We don't grow things. We want
that I
them to
agree.
happen now, and we want them to happen now, and then we bin it and we dispose of it. And
Yeah,
this is not. We need to become much more conscious in our thinking, but
yeah.
we're already really busy. So can we make our conscious consumer easier by having just some metrics when I pick something up that says these 3 things you're okay with? We did it with fair trade, the idea behind fair
Yeah.
trade. Now, the execution, that's another subject matter, right? We do it by saying it's organic food. Actually, all food
Yeah.
should be called food. And if it's not organic, it should be called chemically processed, hormonally injected, messed around with, not real food.
Well,
Food.
chemicals and quality pesticides have also allowed us to create and have more food with less farmers on this planet, even though it has destroyed what you would call like more traditional
And the
farms
planet as we go along. So, yeah.
and the planet. But there's hunger today in this world, not because we're not capable of producing food. It's because for political reasons, usually that some places still use food as a political prop. Like it's not like we figured out a lot. Like we could right now have no food hunger. You know what I
But we
mean?
don't.
We
Instead,
don't, but it's
what we've got, if you are to believe, should we say that? What we've got is we are destroying the planet and we're having areas that are being flooded that aren't stable, that we can't grow on, where we're making people migrate. And that is not a better world than having less people who can farm on larger plots, in my opinion.
I know. There's bad and good. That's
There
I
is a
think
lot
that's
of
where I'm
opportunity for us to shape the world to be fair and sustainable. And please, can more women come in and look at these issues that we're talking about and saying, okay, this is fascinating. I wonder what technologies can allow us to do to reach across the world, have more transparency about what's happening, have more opportunities for people to, in a free market, put their money where their mouth is
that
much more
yes.
easily. And this, I
Yes.
think, the technology can help with.
And I actually like all this talk about traceability made me think of an app that I actually use. Nothing to do with crypto. It's called, I don't know if you know it, Yuka. Okay, now I'm just shilling an app that is
No, you're not going to get paid for
this is where we're going.
it.
But this is an amazing app, okay? Like when you're looking for cosmetics and it's
All
the
right,
Wild
yeah.
West out there, and you scan, because all these products already have a QR code, right? The barcode. So you are in the shop and you're scanning your products, and then you look at this, deodorant or whatever, and you can see the ingredients and you can see what other ingredients there are in it, and it actually tells you in a very simple way. You don't have to know these things. You don't have to
Yes,
know these ingredients. It tells you if it's good, like green, excellent, or like, dangerous.
exactly.
Don't go there.
That's,
Poor, this will give you cancer. Like even
yeah,
though it says it's green and
this
lovely,
was
this
tested on animals, which we know is a hard no for you. Yeah, that's
yeah.
what I'm looking for.
So
Can
here
we
is
have that,
Dove.
please?
Dove is hazardous. It's bad. It's red here in this app. I think it's fascinating, and this for me has allowed me to shop for cosmetics.
And take the guilt away.
Take the guilt away, and also make sure that what I'm putting on myself is not weird and won't create like weird hormonal
Yeah, imbalances.
reactions
Yeah.
or blah blah blah.
Well, we need that with
This.
food. We 100% need that with food and clothing.
Yeah, clothing is also a mess, very big mess.
So the supply chain, to answer your question, where do I see the greatest possibility? The supply chain is one, and the second one is financial inclusion. Right. So we have women historically have not been allowed. I mean, we only recently would have been allowed to have our own bank accounts and credit cards, right?
Right. Because obviously we can't hold on money, Bridget. Obviously, like when we're on our period, we're going to spend it all.
Become hysterical and
obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad someone else was managing our money for. No, sorry.
Yeah. And we in the Western world have more access to finances than the average person in other parts of the world do.
Yeah.
So you have all of these women who are wonderfully organized in communities, and they have, it's called different things across different parts of the world, but a village savings and loans accounts, a VSLAs, where what they do is they bring the money that they have in the community and they pull it together and they say, here, we'll loan this to you so that you can go and buy the seed that you need for whatever, so that you can plant it and you can have a crop and you can have something to sell, and then you pay it back to us. The issue there is all they can do is sustain. They can't begin to build and thrive because it's only that amount of money that stays in their communities, right? If we can now digitize that and offer access for economies from outside of their little community to be able to come in, to offer microloaning, microfinancing, there is a way that people have previously been excluded or held down financially. We can now open up a much greater world to them. And the traditional financial systems just said they wanted to do it. Their legacy systems means it's not cost effective. So if we take away ineffective legacy systems and we build the tech from scratch, we have the capability of being able to deliver at a price where everyone wins. And I think that's huge. You and I have had this conversation before, is that, when you came out of looking at giving people clean water, if they just have enough financial standing, they can access clean water. And so this is where I see this is hugely powerful. And on a micro level, that's brilliant that all of these people who previously haven't had access to finances can now do that and see what they can do with it. That's brilliant for each one of them. On a macro level, women put 90% of what their wealth is back into their communities. So it helps on a macro level as well.
Yeah, I feel
that. So those are my two areas that I my go-to areas.
It's making me think of a project called Ethic Hub, and I just saw that AgriLedger was retweeting something, and they were mentioned as well. And I've seen them around for a couple of years now. I can't remember exactly their token economics, but I do remember the use case, which was micro financing for farmers, I believe, in Mexico through crypto. The whole difficult side of the business BD, basically bringing capital from the Western world to Mexico in sort of a peer-to-peer way, was that people were more interested in investing in crypto. The return on investment of being in crypto is high. Well, if you
depends when. It depends when.
We're just sort of saying,
yeah,
goes
down as well as up.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always go up. Was that was one of the issues, basically, is that people in crypto, but it's really interesting use case, and of course for farmers in Mexico that can't have a bank account, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was a very interesting project.
Have you spoken to Dr. Chris Cleverly yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll introduce you. He'd be someone great to have on the podcast as well. So yeah, I mean, I'll let him tell you the story because he knows it so much better. But basically, I think the business is called Tingo. He has a couple of projects, and what they're doing is they're doing the microfinancing with mobile phones, I think. And most of the loans go to women because women pay the loans back. And he's actually most of his staff are women, and it's doing phenomenally well. So that's really fascinating. You can talk to him about actually how that's working in areas in different regions and
I mean, the moment you have mobile penetration, or like the sky's the limit. I feel like that's definitely a place where with crypto and blockchain we are leapfrogging all these institutions which require paper, going to the office between 3 and 4. Like, no, that's gone. That's gone.
Yeah,
you don't need to go into town anymore to be able to get money.
And your identity and your credit scores. We can reimagine how we do that. Definitely. So that it's not. I mean,
but not the way China's doing it.
No. We can reimagine it, not copy certain systems that are questionable. So yeah,
No.
so I think there's a lot of excitement for a lot of good. I don't actually pay that much attention to a lot of the noise that's out there, because there is a lot of noise, and maybe that noise is helpful with regards to making our systems more robust. Where we can see where it's more easy for people to be able to be fraudulent and learn from that and maybe make that a bit more robust. It might be that actually these projects that I don't think have real world solutions attached to them are playing around with technology that brings in solutions that we can transfer across, but I don't really pay much attention to what's going on. I look at where I see people building
it's
things
hard. It's hard. There is so much noise, and let's not mention the name of the IDEO that you've invested in. But can I just ask?
I failed.
You didn't, but you wanted to, right? Like, let's just imagine you had. What made you think this team is different, or this project is different, and this is where I want to put my money?
It was as simple as it was a member of the Bigger Pie community. It was for an idea that I think is interesting, not necessarily unique. But I thought, no, I do not. So you did ask me the question about investing. I don't invest that much. I would like to invest more, but that's more to do with, you invest what you can afford to invest, right?
Yep. Awesome. Yes, big one. Big one for everybody listening. Do not invest what you cannot afford to lose. Definitely.
Exactly. And then you can take your profits. It's the first time you go in and you lose. I'm sorry for you, but it's the first time you go in, and then you make some gains. Then you can take out your original investment and everything else you're playing with. You might not be able to afford to lose, but there's still a thing about it. So one of the things that I will talk about is that I used to be a financial advisor. I know what you're supposed to do with your money when you're saving. I know what you're going to do. I've advised other people on that. But if you don't have the money to do it, then it doesn't help you at all. And the returns that you get in the traditional financial sectors that you're able to get into, because you're not deemed to be a sophisticated and investor, because you don't have the wealth yet, so you're excluded from the opportunities that actually make the real gains. That's completely flawed, and I don't have the financial well-being that I should have because of my journey as a woman who became a parent, society's expectations on the roles that mothers should bring in rather than fathers, and all the other things that hold women back from reaching their career potential, some of which I mentioned. I had to, I wasn't given a promotion. I had to leave a job because it wasn't open to me, both just basically pure on gender, nothing to do with review performances. So I'm now like, okay, well, how am I going to get my financial stability? I have to take more risk, because if I lose what I have right now, the impact on my future life will be less significant than if I can make good gains on it. So that's how I'm choosing to define what risk is. Risk is not having the opportunity to go out and, like, in the same way as you're when you're an entrepreneur, what's your motivation? Hopefully your motivation is because you really believe in the solution that needs to come out in the world. And you throw away all traditional financial ways of thinking to get there. You go all in, you put everything in, believing that there will be a reward outside of that, which will then have a financial reward attached to it. So I'm kind of just choosing to do that with what I'm doing, with building the Bigger Pie, making sure that we can build an ecosystem that brings value to everyone, where that value can flow through and bring value to the Bigger Pie, and invest in the ecosystem as I go along doing that. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out how it pans out. I would love to hear something you'd like to share with us for the show and tell, if you don't mind, like showing something you like and that we should look into.
So my son said to me, Bridget, you have such a big personality, and sometimes you're hard work. And I was like, what do you mean by a big personality? Normally, if someone says a big personality to me, I think, oh, they mean flamboyant and loud and physically big and take up space. But I think what he meant, as we had a bit more of a conversation, is I don't have that many light conversations. There's always a lesson to be learned in an experience, which for a teenager is magnificently annoying. Whereas for me, when I'm thinking, how can I learn from everything that I'm doing so we can shape and make a better world, it's just living and breathing. So, and I haven't always been like this, but this is a reflection of where I am in my journey right now. And so my thing is my favorite book. So I have a number of books that I have been reading and listening to that allow me to understand why we have the issues with the gender issues that we do, like what does work, what doesn't work, the history of actually how women were computers, and now we have those sorts of things I find fascinating and interesting, and also helps to debunk some of the myths that we have that women just aren't good at STEM. Disagree. But my favorite book is this one. It's Iris Bonet, What Works? Gender Equality by Design, because she's really got help with what the solution is. So we don't have a playbook for a solution. We don't, otherwise we would see companies with better gender balances, okay? We would see better equality in financial pay and all those things. But it does talk about, and I've touched on, is we have structural systems in play. A lot of the time we go through using them and doing them without giving it a second thought. And we need to understand where our unconscious biases are hurting people, are preventing us from onboarding the best talent, are preventing us from seeing problems out there before they happen, are preventing us from imagining and creating incredible solutions that we can bring to the world. But we have to design practices that allow us, when those moments come, to follow a design system that allows us to do that. Unconscious bias training has been proven to do more harm than good. And I read somewhere that someone said, oh, well, if it's unconscious bias, you've had the unconscious bias training, then it's now conscious. That's not how the mind works, right? What foot do you put your sock on every morning first?
I'm not sure I'm conscious of it.
Yeah, okay. It'll be the same foot every day. We have no idea what it is, right? If I then say to you, okay, so, but you don't know. So measure it tomorrow morning.
I'll think of
put a note.
When I wake up, every time I wake up.
Put a note by your sock and say, which foot am I putting on first? Then I'll say to you, okay, now that's no longer unconscious bias, right? On this argument, it's conscious. So now I want you to put your sock on your left foot.
Oh no, I hate that. That's the same thing as when yoga is like put, uncross and then recross the other way.
Yeah. Ugh. So now that you know that you put it on the right foot, and if I said to you, you'll live 5 years longer if you put it on your left foot, you will not be able to put it on your left foot without putting a design practice in place to be able to change that behavior. Does that make sense?
Wait, I need to think that. Oh, sorry. I would redesign because I'm sure that I'm going to live 5 years longer. No, I didn't understand that correctly.
Yeah, sorry. So let's assume that you're correct and you put your sock on your right foot every day. Yeah. And I say to you, okay, now I want you to put your sock on your left foot every day. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's try it. You can come back in a week and we can tweet and say, did it work? Okay. Just on this conversation. I've now told you. And for the sake of this experiment, if you do put it on your left foot, you will live for 5 years longer. Okay. Healthy 5 years, a really healthy 5 years as well. Right. Okay. Just assume that this was true. Yeah. Let's go and see if you manage to, one, figure out which sock you put on your foot first, two, do 5 consecutive days with putting on the other one with no tools. Have no tools to do it. Just wake up and remember. Yes?
Okay, I'm following. Right? I can do this, yes.
Okay, and then see how well you get on. At the end of the day, you can have a mechanism that says, did I count? Did I remember? Or nothing. Just at the end of 5 days, let's just check in. Right? And you'll be like, oh, I forgot, I didn't do it. Or I did it brilliantly, right? I'd be amazed if you did it flawlessly. And then we can say, okay, let's do it for the next 5 days. And let's put in a design system that means that you don't forget, that when you put your sock on, you're easily reminded which foot you need to put it on that day. Does that make sense?
It does. I understand the mechanism, and I remember downloading actually an app to get better sleeping patterns or, be more chill with my life or something like that. And it's really difficult because our brain likes short-term rewards. And so if I'm not immediately rewarded for putting my sock on my left foot, then I'm like, why would I do it? I think it's interesting. But why not? Why, if I assume that I would live 5 years longer, sure. But there's so many irrational things that I do, which are
but
not
also,
good.
why is it more difficult to put it on the other foot? It's the same mechanical process.
Right, but today that's an activity that is, let's call it, I'm not mindful. I should be more mindful. We should all join Yip's meditation classes more often, obviously. But if I'm not being mindful of these moments, it's also because I choose not to think about. There's certain things that I choose to think about, and then certain things are.
Yeah,
It's like,
we do not have the mental capacity to have a cognitive thought about everything that we do.
exactly. There's certain things I just do instantly, and I'm not thinking, oh, I should brush my teeth this way. It's just I'm brushing my teeth. It's happening.
Okay, and so
And
that's exactly what happens when we have unconscious bias. And when it's harming people, when it's harming our business, then we should have a motivation to turn around and say, let's put a design practice into that so that we can course correct. Being told about it does not change your behavior.
No, it doesn't. But if
have to put in a different.
But for example, let's take smoking. Smoking. I used to smoke. I stopped smoking just because I was getting headaches and I was coughing in the morning, and I thought, this is not.
I wonder what that's related to.
This is not going well. I should probably stop this. And it kind of happened gradually, and wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to stop now, because otherwise I wouldn't have stopped. I think it sort of happened naturally. But again, huge bias there, because I know that smoking is bad, but I was still doing it. So there's certain things that we do, even though we know they're not good for us. Same thing at a company. We'll do something because we're just
easier to than not in that moment.
Something like that. Or we don't think about I'm actually like diminishing my lifespan right now. I just like smoking.
Yeah.
I just ate. I feel good. We're drinking. Hey, those moments are gone now for me, but I can't help but when I see someone smoking on screen, or when I see people smoking around me, I'm always like, it's okay. It's okay. It's not that big of a loss, but it's something that I know that I was doing that where I knew it wasn't bad. It was bad for me. So imagine at a company scale, you're managing 500 people. You have crazy KPIs. You're turning in a couple billion or $1 million per year. How do you then figure out how we're going to change something so that we don't all die?
Well, it's not something we don't all die. But in this context, it's so that we can attract and retain the best talent. And you're correct. When all of these things are going on and we don't know how to do it, then that is a challenge. And I get that. So what's one of the reasons why, fingers crossed, and if we can get some funding for it, we'll be working with UC Berkeley to do a playbook for companies in the blockchain space, because it's a more remote based business. We have DAOs that are organizations that are popping up, which are completely different structures that are really,
anyone can join. Anybody listening, DAOs are like, jump in and swim and drown and swim again.
and see the chaos, and this
time. We do need time to experiment all these things.
And there's so much that things that building fast, trying to find the right talent. There's not enough talent, let alone turning around and saying, oh, we need to make sure that actually we've gone through our language and made sure that we've gender neutraled it, or we've tweaked it towards being more gender friendly for women and less obviously gendered for men. And all of these things are the things that you can do. But we do need to make it easy for these companies to be able to put these processes in place from day one. Right? The sooner you put them in place, the sooner you'll start growing your team with diversity. And we all go to networks with people who are like us. So if you can get that diversity right at the beginning, you'll always have a diverse network, because they'll go off with other diverse networks.
That's a good tip for any startups out there, is to start from the get-go. Don't say we'll do that later. It might be harder in the beginning, but it's worth it in the long term, I would say. Same goes for hiring marketing from the get-go. Do not wait till you've built something for 2 years in your basement and then say, oh, I'm going to market. Oh gosh, those upset me so much. I'm like, no. From the get-go, include talent and diversity. Otherwise, you're just building something for yourself.
Yeah. So with the bigger pie, what we want to do is make sure that we are creating a pipeline of women in senior positions to fill in the space. We'll start off focusing on engineering because that is the biggest demand right now. It's also the most well paid.
Yeah.
So that just makes sense. And we need to have women in senior positions. We can't fill women with junior positions, with all of the men with the power and the hiring decisions and the cultural making decisions at the top. We need to be able to solve that problem for companies. They are open to it. They just need us. They need somebody else to solve it for them, or at least help them solve it for themselves a lot more easily. So one is bringing in and upskilling and reskilling these women, working with third-party training partners out there and producing this peer-to-peer support network, mentorship, coaching, etc., all the things that we've touched on before. And then putting them into a toxic environment isn't going to help.
It's like fly and crash.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are. You've reskilled, you've retrained, you've done all of this, and now we're going to put you in a toxic environment. That's not going to serve anyone. So this is why I want to work with UC Berkeley to create a playbook, so we can give the playbook to the companies and they can enforce it, put it into play, implement it rather than enforce it. Implement it was the word I was looking for there. And and if you want some help with that, fine, we'll come in and do some consultancy work and we'll help you to be able to put it into practice. Nice. And then continuously work with the women who are coming through to make sure that they've got continuous professional development. So we'll start with the 0 to CTO program, then we'll have a 0 to CMO program, and then we'll have women on boards. And
that sounds amazing. That's really fun. So what can we look forward to with the bigger pie? Like you said, 0 to CTO, 0 to CMO, a playbook. Just give us your ultimate pitch for the bigger pie. Where can we follow you, and what should we look forward in the future?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So you can check us out on the website, thebiggerpie.io. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Bridget Greenwood. I think I come up on there. Telegram, Bridget TVP, and email Bridget at thebiggerpie.io. If you are a company who has listened this long and would like to be able to be part of the solution, then please get in touch and we can talk about what that looks like. I want to speak to companies to understand, if we do, it's impossible to bring on people with 3 to 5 years experience. The market's growing too big. But if we can bring people in who have senior experience in Web 2.0 and then train them up with Web 3.0, I want to understand what training needs, continuous or before we put them into marketplace. Do they want? You're hiring these people. What do you want? What do you need? Let's have that conversation. Let's have the conversation of once they're in that role, how can we support their training so that they continue to be skilled whilst you guys are focusing on doing the main thing, which is growing a business. If you want to help us with this and you've got some grant funding that would be able to go with this, we would love to hear from you. I am going through a round of grant funding at the moment, putting those applications in, so that would be awesome. I've spoken to a few protocols and they've said, that this is what is needed. So yes, please submit the applications. And if you're a woman who's curious at all or who can help, who wants to get involved, then please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you, to be part of getting you into the industry or supporting others. But whoever you are, if you like the idea, I would love to hear from you. There we are. Catch all. If you think this is a mission worthwhile, please get in touch and we'll figure out how to make it happen together.
Love it. I feel like the name, the bigger pie, I feel like you can so go with this marketing about like cake and like everybody should have a slice, Yeah. Everybody should get a cupcake, or everybody out there should get what they deserve. And I want to just say like, thank you for fostering this community. I'm one of those, I guess, more skeptics as well. And I can say from being in the bigger pie WhatsApp group and then Telegram group and then the events and the opportunities and the support, I am a little bit mind blown about how much the bigger pie has given me as well, given me back in terms of community and business. So definitely a community that I'm very proud to be part of. And I'm not the best contributor. I feel like there's like so much going on sometimes. Like when I look at the chats, I can't follow everything that's happening. But definitely an exciting community to be a part of. And to, even if you don't know where you're at in life or in your career. It's been very supportive. That's what I've really experienced, and it's been really wonderful. So thank you for fostering such a amazing, generous community, Bridget. It has a lot to do with you and the culture you're inspiring and putting yourself out there. So yeah, thank you for all your work. Really.
Ditto back to you. Thank you. And without people like you in the community, it wouldn't work. So you're not supposed to be doing everything and following every message, but you do a lot to support and uplift and educate. And I thank you for the work you do.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this podcast. Bridget, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for sharing your story and about your views about the space and how we can do it better. Let's see what the world of tomorrow will be. I do have wishful thinking and hopes for the crypto space.
Let's not see how it will be. Let's build it how we want it.
Nice one. Very nice one. On those wonderful words, I'll be leaving all the links below. Thank you for joining. Till very soon, Bridget. I hope I can see you in real life.
That would be great.
One of these days.
Take care.
Bye.